Hello again and welcome back. My name's Annie and this is my creative detour. Today is Full Deck Challenge Day. Now, Full Deck Challenge is a altered playing card challenge that's ran every week for 52 weeks, and it's ran by Shana from ShanoukiArt, and I will link her information below if you'd like to join. And also the hashtag is below as well for you to look at everybody's work. Now, this week's prompt is window, and we're working on card number 44, and I have to put my constant on that, which is something that I put on every card. So for me, it's a paint swatch. So somewhere on the face of the card, I have to put some portion of a paint swatch, and I also have to carry something over from last week's card. Now, last week's card, we had circles, and I did an underwater theme, and it's this card here. And I'm going to carry over the circles, but I'm also going to carry over the twine. So you can see under here, there's some twine. I'm going to carry twine over, but in a different color. So let's get set up, and I'll show you all of the materials for today's card. Okay, I have done a little bit of prep, and it's a bit of a assembly job today, really. Let's have a little look at what we're doing. I have pulled out the 9 of diamonds for no particular reason other than it was a red card that I had left. And I have prepped a few circles that I'm going to carry over from last week. And you can see that for window, I'm doing a porthole window. And you've probably already can tell from the theme on the tray that we're doing a sailing theme. I've got a few plans of different sailboats. I've got a few little bits of charms and tickets and things to go on. And you can see that here's my paint swatch, and it was called Sassy Red from British Paints. And I've die cut out a small motif that I found for a diamond, and I have done die cut out a number 9 and a diamond because I'm going to cover the whole card, and so I wanted to put the 9 of diamonds on there somewhere. I've got a scene to look out the window and something for the back of the card, but we'll start by doing the front of the card, and I'm going to just ink the edges. And like I said, it's more of a assembly job today rather than a collage. That's okay. So I'm going to glue that on with some art glitter glue. Now that paper is from Graphic 45. It is called Catch of the Day, and it's the patterns and solids. So we'll burnish that down. Now I don't know very much about sailing. I know a bit about cruising because I love cruising, but I don't know very much about sailing. I've only been on a sailboat maybe once or twice. I love the idea of sailing, but I haven't done very much sailing. I'd love to go on one of those tall ship cruises in the Mediterranean one day. That would be fun. Maybe around Croatia. That's sort of what I'm envisaging my experience on a sailboat to be. I'm not sort of thinking about sailing as in like I'm helping run the boat or anything. Now, what I need to do now is I need to work out where my porthole is going to be. What I have done, I've just punched out with my circle punches some different size circles. This one here I've put some acetate on to create a window. And this one you can see I have put on a few little embellishments to create the little, fixings for the window. And I'm just going to put that on, but I need to work out where on my card I want that to be. Okay, I'm going to put it around about there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark it with a pencil, try and get it in the center, and put a little bit of a mark around for me to know where to punch the circle out. Okay, there we go. We have our hole, and that's our part of our window that has the acetate on, and then there's the front of the porthole. That's working well there. I'll be able to glue that on and line that up. But before I do that, I now need to put a scene on the back of the card. So let me just ink that first, that hole. And then we need to decide which bit of the view of this image looking out the window that we want to see. And I'm thinking I like something like that. So let's cut that out. I think about there. Let's do that. Okay, so I'll just cut that out. I just got this image out of a cruising magazine, actually. I'm sorry if that acetate is reflecting on the video a little bit, but it's a window, so it's going to do what it's got to do. Okay, let's glue that down and trim it up. So we'll put a bit of art glitter glue around our porthole. And we need the horizon line to be straight. That would be a nice view out of a window, wouldn't it? Oh, on a ship. Let's burnish that down, make sure it's stuck. Let's just ink that edge of the card. So we have our deck plans of our yacht, and then we have our porthole window, and we have a beautiful scenery out of the porthole. So let's now do the back of the card and stamp it with the date. And I have another piece of that graphic 45 paper, and I'm just going to stamp the date on it. And today's date is the 9th of November. Now I have some paper here that's got sailors' knots on it, all different ways to tie knots. So I'm going to run that date up there. There we go. I need to have the biggest tidy up in my craft room. I have got stuff everywhere at the moment, and I really need to have a tidy out. I've either been creating, making things, or videoing, or working. I haven't had time to tidy up in between all of those things, and I have got stuff everywhere. My desk, I'm actually, through the camera, the desk probably doesn't look too bad, but if I panned either side, there is stuff everywhere. I'm sure that lots of people's desks are like that when they're in the middle of creating. I'm going to burnish that down. So I wanted to put those knots on the back there because I want to carry over some twine from last week's card and put some knots on here. I'll just cut off the excess. Now I have a little bit of this netting, and I got this off of a bag of avocados from the fruit shop, and it just looked a little bit like fishing net to me. So I'm thinking I'd like to put some of that on just to carry over some of the blue. And I have a ticket that I'm going to put on. So let's cut down a little bit of this netting. If any of you have been on a sailing boat or are sailors that enjoy sailing, leave a comment below. Tell me where I should do some sailing. I'm thinking Croatia. All right, I'm thinking about putting something like this on, stapling it on with my tiny attacher. Then we can cut it down how we want it to look. So let's put our window on so that we have that down. And this is going to be a little bit tricky because of the acetate. It will eventually glue, but it just might slide for a little bit. And we'll glue our porthole on. Now I just made this out of, I punched out quite a few circles out of black cardstock, and then I punched a final one out of a metallic cardstock, and then I just glued on a few of those little embellishment gems. Just wondering whether I want to put down a few, before that sets, a few white splatters onto that background. I think I do. I think I'm going to lift it off and just put a few white splatters. Yes, let's do that. I know it looks a bit of a mess, but let's put just a few white splatters on. I think it might lift it. I don't want any white splatters on the acetate. Bit of salt spray on the window. That's what it'll look like. All right, let's dry that off. Okay, we had a bit of a blip there where I pulled it apart and put some white splatters on it. And we'll put this window back on. I caught it just before it set, which was good. And then we'll glue this window back on. It hadn't quite adhered before, which was great. Sometimes you don't think about things until you're starting to put it together. Oh yes, I'm happier with that. It looks like there's a little bit of dirt on the window, a bit of salt spray, and it's lightened up the image a little bit. I'm just thinking to wrap this a little bit onto here, and I have a few things. I have a compass, I have a ticket to get on the sailing boat, and I have to put on my 9 of diamonds. So I think I'm going to nestle some of these things into the netting as if they're caught in the net, as if they've been fished out of the water and pulled up. And I have a clock. All right, I think I need to staple this net on for it to stay where I need it to be. So let's do that. I'm just going to get my tiny attacher and staple it. There we go. And then I'm going to glue on my ticket to get onto the yacht. I now want to put on some twine. So let's work out our twine. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a few staples in that netting just to hold it. Just there. And I'm going to get some of the twine, and I'm just going to put a notch in the top of the card just for the twine to go around on. So a half of a punch and a half of a punch down here for the twine to stay positioned in. And I'm just going to wrap my twine around. I'll leave enough for a knot. Tie off a bit of twine. And that's where my charm can go. I'll pop that on. Okay, yes, I'm happy with that. Got a little bit of net on there. Now I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this up in here, this little clock. We might need to get the hot glue out, I think. Let's do that. But before we do that, I'm going to stick on my 6, tuck our diamond under. Okay, I have glued that on with some hot glue and it's stuck, and I've put an eyelet in. Now the only other thing I want to do is put a sentiment on. So let me clear the decks and I'll come back to you and we'll put the sentiment on and I'll show you the card. Okay, only thing we've got left to do is to put on a sentiment, and I've found this one from Tim Holtz ideology, and it's from the Snarky, and it says, when in doubt, vacation. And I am all for that. If you don't know what to do about something, I agree. The best thing to do is to go on a vacation. Why not? There we go. That's where they need to go. Let's glue those on. I hope everybody's been doing well, having fun creating things. Time's getting away, isn't it? We're almost at the end of the year. This challenge is going to come to an end, which I'm going to be quite sad about, actually. I've really enjoyed doing it. Okay, so let's have a little look at our card. Now, the prompt today for card number 44 was window, and I decided to do a porthole window. I have created a card that has a sailing theme, and so in the background we've got some plans or blueprints of a yacht, and on the back we have some instructions of how to tie some knots for sailing. Got the date, which is the 9th of November. And I have carried over from last week's card, I've carried over the circles. So the circle window, I've carried over from circles on this card. Plus I've carried over some twine. So we have green twine on this one, and I've got some natural twine on this one. And we've got a net that's caught and picked up a compass, and it's picked up a clock, and it's picked up the 6 of diamonds. Oh, that's meant to be the 9. Let's turn that around. You've probably all been saying, Annie, you had the 9 of diamonds, not the 6. Let's turn it around because it was the 9 of diamonds. We'll tuck that back in there. Save the day. And I made that 9 of diamonds. I die cut it out of some paint swatches, which is my constant. And then we have a ticket to get on our sailing boat. And the sentiment says, when in doubt, vacation. And I agree. So let's put this card onto the deck with the rest of our family. Add it to the ring. There's our card 44 for window. I hope you all enjoyed the video today. If you did, give me a thumbs up and like the video, and subscribe to the channel. That would be wonderful. And I hope that you all have an opportunity to make something fun and new this week. And I will see you all again very soon with another project. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye for now.